My sister accidentally sent me a video of the family calling me a pathetic piggy bank. I stayed. I'm Penelope, 32 years old, and until last spring, I was the go-to person in my family whenever money was needed. My successful career as a software engineer made me proud that I could help those I loved through tough times. At least that's what I thought I was doing. Then came that Tuesday evening, when my sister accidentally sent me a video that shattered everything I believed about my family relationships and forced me to face a painful truth. Before I tell you how I discovered my family's true feelings, let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever had to rethink your relationship with family members. Growing up in Denver, Colorado, I was always the responsible one in our middle-class family. My parents, Thomas and Sandra, raised three of us in a modest home where we never had luxuries, but our basic needs were met. As the middle child between my older brother Jordan and younger sister Amanda, I somehow naturally fell into the role of the family mediator and helper. From an early age, I showed an aptitude for mathematics and problem solving. While my siblings struggled with their studies, I consistently brought home straight A's. My parents never had to worry about my homework or school performance. They were too busy managing Jordan's behavioral issues and Amanda's social drama. Penelope is our rock, my mother would tell relatives at family gatherings. She's the one we never have to worry about. I took pride in that label, though sometimes I wished they'd worry about me just a little. My father worked as an electrician and dreamed of starting his own business someday. He would often talk about his ideas over dinner, and I would sit fascinated while my siblings quickly excused themselves from the table. My mother worked part-time as a receptionist at a dental office, picking up extra shifts whenever Dad's work slowed down. When college application time came around, I applied for every scholarship I could find. My guidance counselor encouraged me to aim high, and to everyone's surprise, I was accepted to Stanford with a substantial scholarship. I was the first in our family to attend a prestigious university. "Look at our girl going off to be somebody important," my father announced at my high school graduation party. The pride in his eyes made all the hard work worth it. College was challenging but rewarding. I majored in computer science, knowing the growing tech industry would provide stable career opportunities. While other students partied on weekends, I worked part-time jobs and maintained my scholarship with excellent grades. Every month I would call home and listen to the family drama I was missing. Jordan had gotten married young to his high school girlfriend and had 2 children by the time I was a sophomore. Their relationship was volatile from the start, with frequent separations and reconciliations. My parents were constantly stepping in to help with the grandkids. Amanda was pursuing her dream of becoming a fashion designer, bouncing between community college classes and retail jobs that never seemed to last. She had an eye for style, but struggled with the discipline needed to complete her coursework. Meanwhile, my father had finally taken the leap to start his own electrical contracting company. The first year was rocky with more expenses than income, putting additional strain on my mother, who took on a second job to help make ends meet. I felt guilty being away at college while my family struggled, but they all insisted I stay focused on my education. "You're going to be our success story," my mother would say. Little did I know how prophetic those words would become. After graduating with honors, I received multiple job offers and accepted a position with a leading tech company in Seattle. At 24, I was earning more than both my parents combined, with excellent benefits and stock options. The day I signed my contract, I called my parents with the good news. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," my mother said. "We always knew you'd go far." Then after a pause, she added, "Your father's business had a setback this month. We're a little short on the mortgage payment." That was the first time I sent money home. $2,000 transferred immediately. It felt good to finally be able to help the people who had supported my dreams all those years. After settling into my Seattle apartment, I flew my family out for a visit. I took them sightseeing and shopping, insisting on paying for everything. Seeing their excitement as they explored the city made me feel like I was finally giving back. "You've done so well for yourself," my father said, looking around my apartment. "All that hard work paid off." That visit established a new dynamic in our family. I was now the successful one, the achiever, the provider. And with that shift came subtle changes in how they related to me. The requests for financial help began innocently enough. My mother's car needed repairs. My sister's rent was late. My brother needed help with childcare expenses after another separation from his wife. My father's business had cash flow issues during slow months. I kept meticulous records of every loan in a spreadsheet, noting the amount, date, and purpose. I never charged interest and never pressed for repayment, trusting that they would return the money when they could. In my mind, these were temporary helps during difficult times. As my career advanced, so did my salary. I was promoted to senior developer within 2 years, bringing another significant pay increase. I shared my good fortune with my family, sending gifts for birthdays and holidays, flying home for visits several times a year, and always picking up the tab for family dinners. My apartment became the venue for family gatherings whenever they visited Seattle. I would spend days preparing, stocking the refrigerator with everyone's favorite foods and planning activities I knew they would enjoy. The costs added up, but seeing their enjoyment made it worthwhile. Meanwhile, my father's business continued to struggle. Despite his technical skills, he lacked business acumen and struggled with financial management. My mother had developed expensive tastes that didn't align with their income, frequently mentioning designer items she coveted. Jordan's marriage finally ended in divorce, leaving him with substantial legal fees and child support payments. His ex-wife had documented his gambling habits during the proceedings, which he vehemently denied to the family. Amanda graduated from fashion school but struggled to find consistent work in the industry. She moved between apartments frequently, always needing help with security deposits and first month's rent for each new place. I watched these patterns develop but continued to believe that my role was to support them through difficulties. After all, wasn't that what families did? Help each other when needed. And I was in a position to help, so why wouldn't I? "You're too generous," my friend Diane told me over coffee one day. "Are they ever planning to pay you back?" "Of course," I replied defensively. "They're just going through rough patches. They'd do the same for me." But as the requests increased in frequency and amount, a small voice of doubt began to whisper in the back of my mind. Still, I silenced it. These were the people who had raised me, supported my education, and celebrated my successes. How could I question their intentions? By the 3-year mark at my company, I had been promoted again and was now leading a development team. My financial situation was solid enough that I began considering purchasing my own home. When I shared this plan with my family during a video call, their reactions were enthusiastic, but tinged with something I couldn't quite identify at the time. "Make sure you get a place with enough guest rooms for all of us," my mother said. "And a big backyard for summer barbecues," my father added. "A pool would be nice," Amanda chimed in. Looking back, I can see they were already thinking about how my new home would benefit them. But at the time, I just felt happy they wanted to be part of my life in Seattle. As my career continued to advance, the financial requests from my family grew both in frequency and amount. What had started as occasional help had evolved into a concerning pattern that I was still reluctant to acknowledge. 3 years after I started helping my family financially, the requests had escalated dramatically. My father called one evening, his voice tight with stress. "Penny, the business is in trouble," he said using my childhood nickname. "I took a big contract and had to front the costs for materials, but the client is delaying payment. I need $15,000 to pay my crew and suppliers, or I'll lose everything." I hesitated only briefly before transferring the money. "Just send me the paperwork for the loan," I said, "for my records." Of course," he promised. "I'll have it all back to you as soon as this client pays up." The paperwork never arrived despite my gentle reminders, and the repayment date came and went without mention. Just 2 months later, my mother called in tears. "The doctor says I need a procedure," she explained between sobs. "The insurance won't cover it, and it's $8,000. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." When I pressed for details about the procedure, she became vague, mentioning only that it was women's health related and too personal to discuss. Not wanting to invade her privacy, I sent the money immediately. Later, I saw photos on her social media of a rejuvenating spa weekend, with her friends sporting what looked suspiciously like a fresh facelift. I told myself I must be mistaken. My sister Amanda was next with her dream of launching a small fashion line. "I've got all the designs ready," she explained excitedly. "I just need startup capital for materials and production. $12,000 should cover it. This is my big break penny. I transferred the money that same day along with links to business plan templates and marketing resources. Amanda promised to send me photos of her progress, but they never materialized. When I asked about the business a few months later, she mentioned production delays and quickly changed the subject. Then came Jordan's custody battle. After months of relative stability, he and his ex-wife were back in court. "She's trying to take the kids away completely," he explained during a late-night call. "I need $10,000 for the lawyer retainer, or I'll lose them. You know how much my kids mean to me, Penny." I couldn't bear the thought of my niece and nephew losing time with their father, so again I transferred the funds immediately. The pattern was clear, yet I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge it. Each request came with urgency, emotional appeals, and promises of repayment that never materialized. My spreadsheet of family loans had grown to an alarming size with almost no entries in the repaid column. Around this time, I received another promotion at work, moving up to senior developer with a significant salary increase. When I shared the news with my family, their first questions were about how much more I would be making, thinly disguised as congratulations. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," my mother said. "Now you can finally upgrade from that starter apartment." Taking their encouragement to heart, I began looking for my first home. After months of searching, I found a beautiful 3-bedroom house in a nice Seattle neighborhood. It was at the upper end of my budget, but I qualified for the mortgage and made the purchase. I invited my family to see the new house once I'd settled in. They flew out for a long weekend, and I took time off work to show them around Seattle. As always, I covered all expenses, flights, meals, activities, everything. During the house tour, they didn't just admire my new home, they staked claims to it. "This bedroom will be perfect for when I come to stay," my mother announced, walking into the guest room with the ensuite bathroom. "The basement would make a great studio apartment for Amanda when she moves to Seattle," my father suggested, though my sister had never mentioned any plans to relocate. "You should put a gaming system in the spare room for the kids when they visit," Jordan added. They spoke as if my home was a family timeshare rather than my personal space. At dinner that night, they discussed potential renovations to make the house more suitable for family gatherings. "The kitchen island could be bigger," my mother noted. "It would be better for holiday meal prep." "That backyard needs a proper grill setup," my father insisted. I smiled and nodded, still basking in the joy of homeownership and the idea of hosting my family. But that night alone in my new bedroom, I calculated the financial impact of their suggested improvements. The figure was staggering. To maintain my ability to help my family while covering my new mortgage and home expenses, I began taking on freelance projects in addition to my full-time job. My work week stretched to 60, sometimes 70 hours. I rarely saw friends anymore, always too busy or too tired. Diane, my closest friend since college, finally confronted me after I canceled our plans for the 3rd time in a row. "What's going on with you?" she demanded over the phone. "You're working yourself to death. Is it the new house?" "I'm fine," I insisted. "Just busy with work and helping family a bit." "A bit? Penelope, you've been sending money home for years. When was the last time any of them paid you back?" Her question stung because I knew the answer: never. Not 1 cent had ever been repaid. "They're family," I said defensively. "They'd do the same for me." "Would they?" Diane challenged. "Has any one of them ever offered to help you with anything that required actual sacrifice on their part?" I changed the subject quickly, uncomfortable with the direction of our conversation. But Diane's words lingered in my mind, planting seeds of doubt I wasn't ready to nurture. The newest round of financial requests came shortly after my family's visit to the new house. My father called about expanding his business, needing $30,000 for new equipment. My mother mentioned a luxury cruise that her doctor had supposedly recommended for her health, costing $12,000. Amanda needed 6 months of rent paid in advance for a more stable living situation. Jordan's car was being repossessed unless he could come up with $8,000 immediately. For the first time, I didn't immediately say yes. I asked questions, requested documentation, suggested alternative solutions. Their reactions ranged from hurt to indignation. "Don't you trust me?" my father demanded. "After all we've done for you," my mother said tearfully. "I thought you cared about my success," Amanda accused. "I guess your nibblings don't matter to you," Jordan said, using the gender-neutral term for nieces and nephews. Their emotional manipulation worked. I sent the money, all of it though, with growing anxiety about my own financial security. My savings were dwindling despite my excellent salary. The freelance work was taking a toll on my health with frequent headaches and disturbed sleep. At my friend's insistence, I finally started seeing a therapist, Dr. Melissa Chen, who specialized in family dynamics. Tell me about your family's expectations, Dr. Chen suggested during our third session. They expect me to help when they need it, I replied. That's normal, isn't it? Help can take many forms, she said carefully. But financial support should have boundaries, especially when it's one-sided. Have you ever set any boundaries with your family about money? The question made me uncomfortable. They're going through tough times, I defended. Setting boundaries feels selfish. Boundaries aren't selfish, Penelope. They're necessary for healthy relationships. Without them, resentment grows even if you don't recognize it yet. I nodded politely, but couldn't imagine confronting my family about money. They needed me. And despite the growing evidence to the contrary, I still believed they appreciated my help and would eventually repay the loans when their situations improved. Little did I know that I was about to discover exactly how they viewed my financial support. It was a Tuesday evening in April, when everything changed. I had just finished a 12-hour workday completing both my regular job responsibilities and a freelance project that was due at midnight. My eyes burned from staring at code for so long, and my shoulders ached with tension. I shuffled to my kitchen, microwaved a frozen dinner, and collapsed onto my couch. My phone pinged with a notification, a video message from my sister Amanda in our family group chat. I smiled, expecting to see my niece and nephew doing something cute or perhaps a clip from a family gathering I'd missed. I tapped the video, and my screen filled with an image of my family sitting around my parents' dining room table. The camera seemed to be positioned on the table, partially hidden behind a centerpiece. They clearly didn't realize they were being recorded. "Is Penny joining the call tonight?" my mother asked, sipping from a wine glass that I recognized I had given her the set for Christmas. "Nah, she's working late again," Jordan replied, rolling his eyes. "Always the perfect daughter, right? Well, her workaholic tendencies benefit all of us." My father chuckled, raising his glass. "To our pathetic piggy bank, always good for another withdrawal." They all laughed and clinked glasses. I felt as though someone had punched me in the stomach, but I couldn't look away from the screen. "Remember when she called asking about the business expansion paperwork?" my father continued. "I almost slipped and mentioned the fishing boat." My mother giggled. "She's so gullible. That procedure I needed took that money straight to Dr. Evans for my Botox and fillers." "At least you guys come up with excuses," Amanda said. "I just tell her my fashion line needs more capital, and the cash appears like magic. She's never even asked to see a single design." "That's because she thinks she's such a savior," Jordan added. "Poor little Penny, so desperate for family approval she'll pay any price for it." My brother leaned forward, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "You know what, I bet we could get another 20 grand out of her for my gambling debt. I'll just say it's for the kids' college fund." "You think she'll ever wise up and ask for her money back?" someone asked from off camera. I recognized my aunt's voice. The entire table erupted in laughter. "Please," my mother said, wiping tears of mirth from her eyes. "Penny would never risk losing her precious family. She's too desperate for our approval. Besides," my father added, "what's she gonna do, sue her own family? That's not our perfect daughter." The video suddenly jerked, and Amanda's face appeared close to the camera, eyes wide with alarm. "Oh shit," she muttered, and the recording ended abruptly. I sat frozen, the forgotten microwave dinner cooling on my lap. My phone immediately began buzzing with notifications. Amanda. "OMG, wrong video." "Sorry, Amanda, just delete that." "Amanda, seriously, Penny, don't watch that." "Amanda, it was just stupid family jokes. Amanda, call me." I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled so badly I dropped the phone. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting violently. Kneeling on the cold tile floor, I fought for composure. Years of memories flashed through my mind, now tainted by this new perspective. Every grateful hug, every tearful thank you, every promise of repayment, all lies carefully crafted to keep their piggy bank open for business. I splashed cold water on my face and looked at my reflection. Who was this woman who had been so thoroughly deceived by the people she trusted most? How could I have been so blind? My phone continued to buzz insistently. I returned to the living room and saw dozens of missed calls and messages from Amanda. I switched my phone to silent and set it face down on the coffee table. I needed to think clearly. Opening my laptop, I pulled up my financial spreadsheet, the one documenting every loan I'd given my family. The total number glared back at me, $87,425 over 5 years. Not a single dollar repaid. The shock gave way to a deep, searing pain that radiated through my chest. The betrayal wasn't just about the money, it was about the mockery, the calculation, the complete lack of genuine love or appreciation. They hadn't just taken advantage of me, they had laughed about it, planned it, celebrated it. I spent the entire night reviewing emails, text messages, and bank statements, collecting evidence of every transaction. When morning came, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Then I texted the one person I knew would understand. Diane arrived 45 minutes later with coffee and breakfast. Without a word, she sat beside me on the couch and held me while I sobbed. When I finally calmed enough to speak, I showed her the video. "Those absolute parasites," she whispered, her face pale with anger. "Penelope, I'm so sorry." "How could I be so stupid?" I asked, my voice raw from crying. "You weren't stupid. You were loving and generous to people who didn't deserve it." Diane squeezed my hand. "The question is, what are you going to do now?" My first instinct was to call each family member and confront them immediately. I wanted to scream to make them feel even a fraction of the pain I was experiencing, but Diane urged caution. "Don't react emotionally," she advised. "That's what they expect from you. They'll manipulate those emotions like they always have. You need a strategic plan." She was right. If I wanted to reclaim both my money and my dignity, I needed to approach the situation with the same methodical problem-solving skills I used in my work. Over the next 2 days, I consulted with a financial advisor and an attorney. I learned that while I had limited legal recourse for verbal agreements, I could still build a case based on text messages and emails that acknowledged the loans. More importantly, I could use the video as leverage not necessarily for legal action, but for motivating repayment. The most effective approach might be formal demand notices, my attorney advised. Establish payment schedules and consequences for noncompliance. Most people will pay when faced with potential legal action or public embarrassment. With professional help, I drafted formal loan repayment requests with detailed payment schedules for each family member. The letters outlined the original loan amounts, reasonable interest accrued, and monthly payment expectations over a 2-year period. I set up a separate email account and obtained a dedicated phone number solely for loan-related communications. The hardest part was deciding not to mention the video yet. I wanted to give them one chance to do the right thing without resorting to that leverage. Perhaps I thought there was still a shred of decency or familial obligation that might compel them to make amends. "What if they still refuse to pay?" I asked my attorney. "Then we escalate," she replied simply. "But start with the assumption of compliance. It's cleaner that way." As I prepared to send the notices, I wrestled with conflicting emotions. Despite everything, these were still the people I had loved and trusted my entire life. Was I really prepared to damage those relationships permanently? Then I remembered my brother's casual discussion of extracting another $20,000 from me for his gambling debts. I recalled my mother's gleeful admission about the cosmetic procedures. I heard again my father's toast to their pathetic piggy bank. My resolve hardened. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice and self-respect. They had damaged our relationships, not me. I was simply refusing to be their victim any longer. With Diane by my side for moral support, I sent the certified letters and a carefully worded email to all family members explaining the notices they would be receiving. "I won't be their piggy bank anymore," I told Diane, my voice steady for the first time in days. "Whatever happens next, I know I'm doing the right thing." I had no idea then just how chaotic things would become, or how their panic would reveal even more about who my family really was. Within hours of sending the certified letters and explanatory email, my phone exploded with notifications. I was grateful for my foresight in setting up a separate email and phone number for loan communications, because my personal devices would have been overwhelmed. The family group chat erupted with messages, none of which acknowledged any wrongdoing. Mom, has anyone heard from Penelope? There must be some misunderstanding. Dad, just got a certified letter from her. What the hell is this about Jordan? Same here. Is she having some kind of breakdown, Amanda? I'll try calling her again. I watched their confusion unfold on my screen, feeling strangely detached. The power dynamic had shifted, and they didn't know how to process it. The first direct response came from my sister Amanda, who called the dedicated phone line I'd set up. I answered professionally, as if speaking to a client. Penelope Financial Recovery, how may I help you? Penny, what is going on? Amanda's voice was high-pitched with anxiety. Is this about that stupid video? It was just a joke. We were all a little drunk and saying dumb things we didn't mean. I maintained the calm, detached tone I had practiced with Diane. This isn't about any video, Amanda. This is about respecting agreements. You've received formal notice of the loans you've accepted from me over the past 3 years, totaling $22,600. The letter outlines a reasonable payment plan based on your income. Loans. But you never said I had to pay that back. You know, I don't have that kind of money. Actually, I did specify these were loans, I corrected her. I have text messages where you acknowledge these were temporary financial aids that you would repay. If the proposed payment schedule doesn't work with your budget, you can submit an alternative proposal with documentation of your income and expenses. I can't believe you're doing this to your own sister. Her voice cracked. Does this have anything to do with that video I accidentally sent? Did you actually watch that? I sidestepped her question. This is about financial responsibility, Amanda. I've been keeping detailed records of these transactions for years. The fact that you've made zero attempt to repay any portion speaks for itself. We're family, she cried. Family helps each other. Yes, I agreed. Family helps each other. That goes both ways. I'll expect your first payment or a counter proposal by the date specified in the letter. Have a good day, Amanda. I ended the call and took a deep breath, my hands shaking slightly. It had been harder than I expected, but I'd maintained my composure. 1 down, 3 to go. My father called next, his tone alternating between confusion and indignation. Penelope, whatever this is about, we can discuss it like adults, he began reasonably. There's no need for formal letters and payment schedules. I disagree, I replied. I've tried informal approaches for years. They haven't worked. My business is just getting on solid footing, he protested. If you demand these payments now, everything I've built will collapse. Is that what you want? To destroy your father's dream? The emotional manipulation was so transparent now that I could see it clearly. Your business has been just getting on solid footing for 5 years, Dad. Meanwhile, you've borrowed over $40,000 from me with no repayment. The payment schedule I've proposed leaves you plenty of operating capital, based on the income figures you've shared with me previously. What about the fishing boat? I added quietly. How does that factor into your business struggles? There was a telling pause. What fishing boat? Exactly, I said. I'll expect your first payment or counter proposal by the specified date. My mother's approach was entirely different. She went straight to health concerns. I've had to schedule an emergency appointment with my doctor, she said weakly when she called. My blood pressure is through the roof from the stress of your letter. The doctor says I could have a stroke if this continues. In the past, this would have immediately triggered my guilt and concern. Now I recognized it as another manipulation tactic. I'm sorry to hear about your health concerns, Mom. Stress can indeed be damaging. I'd recommend discussing payment options with Dad and working out a household budget that accommodates these obligations. Many find that financial planning reduces stress in the long run. How can you be so cold? She gasped. I raised you better than this. Yes, you taught me about responsibility and keeping promises. I agreed. I'm simply asking for the same consideration. I'll expect your response by the specified date. Jordan's strategy was the most aggressive. If you go through with this, you'll never see your niece and nephew again, he threatened. Is money really worth losing your relationship with those kids? That's an interesting perspective, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the pain his threat caused. Using children as leverage in a financial dispute. I wonder how a family court judge would view that approach, especially given your history. He backpedaled immediately. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just upset. I understand. This is a significant change in our dynamic. The payment schedule I've proposed for your $32,000 debt is very reasonable. If you need to adjust the terms based on your current income, submit documentation with your counter proposal. After the initial round of calls, I set up automated payment reminders through my financial software. Each family member would receive regular notifications about upcoming due dates and any missed payments. The first deadline came and went without a single payment received. As instructed by my attorney, I sent follow-up notices with added late fees. The family's strategy shifted from denial and emotional manipulation to outright anger. My father sent a scathing email accusing me of betraying family values. My mother left tearful voicemails about her deteriorating health. Amanda posted vague social media updates about discovering who your real friends are during hard times. Jordan simply went silent. Then they attempted a new approach, showing up unannounced at my home on a Saturday morning. I saw them through the security camera and didn't answer the door. Instead, I sent a group text. I've made it clear that all communication regarding the loans should go through the designated channels. Unscheduled visits are not appropriate. Please respect these boundaries. They stood on my porch for 20 minutes, alternating between ringing the doorbell, calling my phone, and arguing amongst themselves. Finally, they left a handwritten note promising to work something out if I would just talk to them in person. The note made no mention of repayment. Extended family members began calling, having been recruited to mediate the situation. My Aunt Linda, who I'd heard in the video, called to express her concerns about family harmony. "We're worried about you, Penelope," she said. "This isn't like you sending formal demands to your own parents." "I'm actually doing quite well, Aunt Linda," I replied. "I finally recognized some unhealthy patterns in our family dynamics and am taking steps to address them. How are you doing? I heard you were at my parents' house recently for dinner." Her momentary silence confirmed she knew about the video. "Your parents have always supported you," she said, changing tactics. "They made so many sacrifices for your education." "My education was funded primarily through scholarships I earned," I corrected her. "But I appreciate your concern. If you'd like to help resolve the situation, perhaps you could encourage them to honor their financial obligations." With each interaction, I grew more confident and less emotionally reactive. The clarity that came from seeing their true colors was painful, but ultimately liberating. Then came an unexpected ally. Jordan's ex-wife Melissa reached out via email. "I heard what's happening with your family," she wrote. "There's something you should know. Jordan claimed gambling debts were the reason he couldn't make child support payments, but I've suspected he was giving that money to your parents. I have some documentation that might help you if things escalate legally." Her information proved invaluable, revealing a pattern of financial deception that extended beyond what I'd already uncovered. My father had apparently been using some of the money I sent to cover Jordan's gambling losses, in exchange for Jordan doing free labor for the electrical business. As painful as these revelations were, they strengthened my resolve. This wasn't just about money. It was about years of calculated deception by the people who should have been most trustworthy in my life. 2 months into the process with no payments received, despite multiple notices, I knew it was time to escalate, as my attorney had advised. I hadn't wanted to use the video as leverage, but their collective refusal to acknowledge their obligations left me no choice. I hadn't anticipated how dramatically things would escalate once I did. 2 months had passed since I sent the formal loan repayment notices, and not a single dollar had been repaid. My family had progressed from denial to anger to increasingly desperate attempts at manipulation. It was time for the next phase of my plan. I was at work when the receptionist called. "Penelope, your family is here in the lobby, all of them. They're insisting on seeing you immediately." My heart raced. Showing up at my workplace was crossing a major boundary. "Tell them I'm in a meeting and unavailable," I instructed. "If they refuse to leave, security should be notified." "They're saying it's a family emergency," the receptionist continued, uncertainty in her voice. "It's not," I said firmly. "Please follow protocol for unwanted visitors." I immediately emailed my supervisor explaining the situation, and then texted Diane, who worked just a few blocks away. Within minutes, she replied that she was on her way to provide moral support. From my office window, I could see the building entrance. Security was escorting my parents, sister, and brother outside, while my mother appeared to be crying dramatically. Several coworkers had stopped to watch the scene. My professional reputation was now at risk. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my purse and laptop. I had anticipated that they might eventually try something like this, though not so publicly. I had prepared accordingly. I met Diane in the lobby and briefly explained what had happened. "They're escalating because they're desperate," she said. "Are you ready to use the video?" I nodded grimly. I didn't want it to come to this, but they've left me no choice. As we exited the building, my family was still in the parking lot, apparently debating their next move. When they spotted me, they rushed over, all talking simultaneously. "Enough!" I said, firmly raising my hand. My voice was steady, though my heart was pounding. "This is my workplace. Your behavior is completely inappropriate." "You've given us no choice," my father said. "You won't answer our calls, you've blocked us on social media." "I've responded to every communication sent through the proper channels." I corrected him. "I established a specific email address and phone number for loan-related matters. You've chosen not to use them constructively." "This isn't about loans," my mother cried, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "This is about you turning your back on your family." Several colleagues had paused nearby, pretending not to listen. I noticed my team lead among them, looking concerned. This was exactly the public spectacle I had hoped to avoid. "I see you've brought an audience," I observed quietly. "Since we're doing this publicly, I should probably mention the video." Amanda's face drained of color. "What video?" my mother asked, looking between us in confusion. I pulled out my phone, opened the video, and held it so only they could see the thumbnail image of them seated around the dining table. "The one where you toast to your pathetic piggy bank and laugh about how you've been deceiving me for years," I said, my voice perfectly controlled. "The one where Jordan discusses extracting another $20,000 from me for gambling debts while pretending it's for his children's education." My father's face hardened. "You're threatening us with an illegally recorded conversation." "It wasn't illegally recorded," I corrected him. "Amanda sent it to me voluntarily, though accidentally, and I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply explaining why I've taken formal steps to recover money that was provided as loans acknowledged as loans and never repaid." I noticed an older woman watching our confrontation with particular interest. With a jolt, I recognized my father's business partner, Margaret, who was presumably visiting our company for a meeting. "Margaret," my father said awkwardly, noticing her at the same time. "What are you doing here?" "I had a meeting with the IT department about updating our systems," she replied, her expression unreadable. "Thomas, what's this about loans and gambling debts?" An uncomfortable silence fell. My father cleared his throat. "It's a family misunderstanding, nothing to worry about." "Actually, Margaret, since you're here, there's something you should know," I said, seizing the opportunity. "Has my father mentioned borrowing money in my name for business expenses?" Margaret's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. "What are you talking about?" "I've recently discovered some irregularities in loan documentation," I explained. "It appears my name may have been used as a guarantor without my knowledge." My father's face flushed dark red. "Penelope, that's enough." "Is it?" I challenged. "Because I've been contacted by a credit agency about a business loan in default, a loan I never signed for." This was news to me as well, having just received the notification that morning. I hadn't had time to investigate fully, but my father's reaction confirmed my suspicions. Margaret turned to my father, her expression now thunderous. "We need to talk, immediately." She turned and walked stiffly toward her car. My father shot me a look of pure hatred before following her, leaving my mother's sister and brother standing awkwardly in the parking lot. "I think we're done here," I said quietly. "If you have proposals regarding repayment, please send them through the appropriate channels. Otherwise, I'll be proceeding with legal action as outlined in my previous communications." "You'd really sue your own family?" my mother asked incredulously. "I'd really expect my family to honor their obligations and show basic respect," I corrected her. "The choice of how this proceeds is entirely yours." With that, I turned and walked back toward the building with Diane beside me, leaving them staring after us. It wasn't until we were safely inside that I allowed my hands to shake and tears to fill my eyes. "You did brilliantly," Diane whispered, giving my arm a supportive squeeze. The confrontation proved to be a turning point, though not immediately in the way I had hoped. The following days brought new challenges as my family's desperation increased. My father's business partner, Margaret, contacted me directly requesting a meeting to discuss the unauthorized loans. It turned out my father had indeed used my name and excellent credit history as a guarantor for several business loans without my knowledge. Margaret was horrified and immediately began restructuring the business finances to remove my liability. My mother, apparently undeterred by the public confrontation, began posting expensive purchases on social media while simultaneously claiming financial hardship. When I pointed out this discrepancy through the proper channels, she set her accounts to private and told extended family members I was monitoring her like a stalker. Amanda took perhaps the most outrageous step, launching a GoFundMe campaign titled "Family in Crisis Legal Threats and Financial Hardship." The description painted me as a wealthy, vindictive relative using legal maneuvers to punish them for minor misunderstandings. I responded by posting a single factual comment on the campaign page. As the person being described in this fundraiser, I feel obligated to clarify that this campaign misrepresents the situation. This is about the recovery of documented loans totaling over $80,000, not a family disagreement. I would encourage potential donors to request documentation of the claims being made. The campaign was taken down within hours. Jordan's approach was the most surprising. After weeks of silence, he requested a private meeting through the proper channels. Against Diane's advice, I agreed to meet him at a public coffee shop. "I'm sorry," were his first words, as he sat down across from me looking haggard and tired. "I've been lying to everyone, including myself." Over the next hour, Jordan confessed the full extent of his gambling addiction and the many lies he'd told to feed it. He had indeed used my money intended for legal fees and child support to cover gambling debts and fund new betting. "I hit rock bottom last week," he admitted. "After the scene at your workplace, Melissa threatened to pursue full custody. I realized I was about to lose everything that matters." He slid a folder across the table. Inside was documentation of his enrollment in a gambling addiction treatment program and a structured financial plan developed with a credit counselor. "I can't pay everything at once," he said, "but I've worked out a payment plan I can actually stick to. $500 a month for now, increasing when I complete my certification program next year. It'll take time, but I'll repay everything, I swear." His sincerity seemed genuine, but I'd been deceived too many times to trust easily. "I appreciate the effort, Jordan. I'll review this with my financial advisor and respond through the proper channels." "That's fair," he acknowledged. "And Penny, I really am sorry. Not just about the money, about everything. The things I said in that video." He shook his head in shame. "That wasn't me. Or rather, it was the worst version of me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm working to be better." It was the first genuine apology I'd received from any family member, and despite my resolve to remain detached, I felt a small spark of hope that at least one relationship might eventually heal. With Jordan's unexpected turnaround as leverage, my attorney suggested a formal family meeting to address all outstanding loans at once. The invitation was clear: attend with counterproposals and payment plans, or face legal action. To my surprise, they all agreed to attend. The meeting was scheduled at my attorney's office for the following week. Whatever happened next would determine whether my family relationships could be salvaged in any form, or whether this financial reckoning would be the final chapter in our story together. The family meeting at my attorney's office marked a pivotal moment in my journey to reclaim not just my money, but my self-respect. My attorney, Sophia Taylor, had prepared a conference room with individual folders for each family member, containing detailed loan documentation and proposed repayment schedules. I arrived early, my stomach in knots despite weeks of preparation. Diane waited in the reception area for moral support, giving me a thumbs up as I entered the conference room. "Remember, you hold all the cards here," Sophia reminded me. "Stay calm and let me handle any hostility or deflection." My family arrived together, looking like they'd coordinated their appearance to project financial hardship. My once stylish mother had foregone her usual makeup and jewelry. My father wore an old suit that had seen better days. Amanda's typically fashionable outfit had been replaced by simple jeans and a plain sweater. Only Jordan looked relatively normal, though decidedly subdued. "Thank you for coming," Sophia began once everyone was seated. "We're here to resolve outstanding financial obligations in a way that serves everyone's best interests. Ms. Hamilton has been extremely patient, but that patience has limits." My mother immediately attempted to redirect the conversation. "Before we start, I think we need to address the emotional aspects of this situation. Penelope has Mrs. Hamilton," Sophia interrupted smoothly. "This meeting is specifically about financial obligations. Any other concerns will need to be addressed separately." She distributed the folders. "Inside, you'll find comprehensive documentation of all loans received, acknowledgments of these loans in your own words via text or email, and proposed repayment schedules based on information we have about your financial situations." "These figures are outrageous," my father protested, flipping through his folder. "I never received this much money." "Page 3 contains bank transfer receipts with dates and amounts," Sophia replied calmly. "Page 4 has text messages where you acknowledged receiving these specific sums. If you dispute any particular transaction, we can address those individually." For the next hour, Sophia methodically walked through each disputed amount, presenting evidence that left little room for denial. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense as my family realized the strength of my documentation. "Even if these amounts are accurate, there's no way we can repay this much," my mother finally said. "We simply don't have the money." "Actually, we have several options for repayment," Sophia explained. "Ms. Hamilton is willing to accept reasonable payment plans based on your current incomes. Alternatively, there are options for collateral-based arrangements." "Collateral?" my father asked warily. "Yes, for example, your business assets, Mrs. Hamilton's jewelry collection that we've documented through social media posts, Amanda's car, and so forth. We've prepared estimates of these assets' values." My sister gasped. "You want to take my car? We want you to honor your obligations." I spoke up for the first time. "If you can't make monthly payments, then yes, assets will need to be liquidated." My father leaned forward, his expression calculating. "What if we declare bankruptcy?" "You'd get nothing then." Sophia smiled thinly. "We've anticipated that possibility, Mr. Hamilton. Given the evidence we have, particularly the video recording where you all discuss deliberately defaulting on these loans, we could make a strong case for fraudulent borrowing with no intention to repay. Bankruptcy courts take a very dim view of such situations." My father's face paled. The mention of the video still had power. "What exactly do you want from us?" he asked, his voice subdued for the first time. "Reasonable repayment with accountability measures," I replied. "I'm not trying to destroy anyone's life. I just want what's rightfully mine, with appropriate interest for the extended delay." Jordan cleared his throat. "I've already worked out a payment plan," he said, sliding his folder forward. $500 monthly to start with increases when my financial situation improves. I've also agreed to financial counseling as part of my recovery program." My parents and sister looked at him in surprise. This was clearly not part of their coordinated strategy. "That's a reasonable approach," Sophia acknowledged. "We're prepared to accept similar arrangements from each of you, provided they're accompanied by appropriate accountability measures." "What kind of accountability measures?" my mother asked suspiciously. "Monthly financial statements, proof of income, and enrollment in financial management counseling," Sophia explained. "Ms. Hamilton is also requiring signed promissory notes with legally binding terms." "This is ridiculous," my father muttered. "We're family, not business associates." "And yet," I said quietly, "you've treated me like an ATM rather than a daughter. The time for family trust without verification has passed." There was a long silence as my words sank in. "What if we refuse?" Amanda finally asked. "Then we proceed to small claims court for the amounts within its jurisdiction and civil court for the larger sums," Sophia explained matter-of-factly. "We'll also file police reports regarding the unauthorized use of Ms. Hamilton's identity for business loans, which could potentially result in criminal charges." The threat of legal consequences and potential public exposure finally broke through their resistance. One by one, they agreed to the terms, though, with varying degrees of resentment and hostility. By the end of the 3-hour meeting, we had signed agreements from each family member. My father would make monthly payments of $800 and transfer partial ownership of his business equipment as collateral. Margaret, his business partner, had already implemented controls to prevent further financial impropriety. My mother would sell her luxury handbag collection and jewelry with documented proof of sale to make an initial lump sum payment, followed by monthly installments from her salary. Amanda agreed to a smaller monthly payment with a balloon payment deadline once she secured full-time employment using her car as collateral. Jordan's previously arranged payment plan was formalized with additional provisions related to his recovery program. As they signed the final documents, the atmosphere was somber. There was no shouting, no dramatic accusations, just the quiet acknowledgement of a fundamental shift in our relationships. "I hope you're satisfied," my mother said as she gathered her purse to leave her voice bitter. "You've turned your back on your family for money." "No," I corrected her gently. "I've simply stopped allowing my family to take advantage of my love and generosity. There's a difference." After they left, I remained in the conference room with Sophia, emotionally exhausted but relieved. "This went better than expected," she observed. "But the real test will be whether they follow through with payments." "What do you think are the odds?" I asked. She smiled ruefully. "Based on their past behavior, I'd say mixed at best. But the legal consequences of defaulting on these signed agreements are significant. That might motivate compliance." I nodded, gathering my paperwork. "Either way, I've done what I needed to do. The rest is up to them." As I left the building with Diane, I felt lighter than I had in months. I had no illusions that this was the end of the struggle, or that my family relationships would ever return to what I'd once believed they were. But for the first time since discovering the video, I felt a sense of control over my own story. The coming months would reveal which family members, if any, were capable of genuine change. I was prepared for any outcome, having finally learned the most important lesson of all. My worth wasn't measured by what I could give to others, but by the respect I demanded for myself. 1 year after sending those first formal loan repayment notices, my life had transformed in ways I never could have anticipated. The journey hadn't been smooth. There had been many difficult moments and painful realizations, but I had emerged stronger and wiser. The loan repayments had proceeded with varying degrees of success. My father's business had undergone significant restructuring under Margaret's more rigorous management. With her oversight, he had maintained consistent monthly payments, though our personal relationship remained strained. Our interactions were limited to brief formal emails regarding financial matters. My mother had initially complied with the agreement, reluctantly selling much of her luxury collection to make the first lump sum payment. However, her resentment manifested in passive-aggressive social media posts about materialistic children and the death of family loyalty. After 3 months of payments, she attempted to renegotiate the terms, claiming new health issues prevented her from working full-time. My financial advisor and attorney helped me navigate this manipulation attempt. We requested medical documentation and adjusted the payment schedule accordingly, extending the term but not reducing the total amount due. The experience taught me to respond with facts and boundaries rather than emotion. Amanda's compliance had been the most inconsistent. She made the first 2 payments on time, then missed the next 3, offering increasingly elaborate excuses. When I initiated the collateral claim process for her car, as specified in our agreement, she suddenly found the money to bring her account current. This pattern of last-minute compliance before consequences took effect continued throughout the year. Jordan's journey had been the most surprising and ultimately hopeful. Following our agreement, he had not only maintained perfect payment record, but had also made genuine efforts to rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. His commitment to recovery seemed sincere. He had completed 6 months of intensive treatment for his gambling addiction and was now serving as a peer counselor for others facing similar struggles. The program taught me that recovery isn't just about stopping the harmful behavior, he explained during one of our monthly coffee meetings. It's about understanding why you did it and building a new life based on honesty and accountability. and his ex-wife Melissa had cautiously allowed him increased visitation with their children, as he demonstrated consistent responsibility. Watching him rebuild his life gave me hope that genuine change was possible even after years of destructive patterns. My personal growth journey had been equally significant. With Dr. Chen's guidance, I had worked through the grief, anger, and betrayal that followed my discovery of the video. Therapy helped me understand how my desire for family approval had made me vulnerable to exploitation and how to establish healthier boundaries. Your generosity wasn't the problem, Dr. Chen had pointed out. It was the one-sided nature of the giving and the lack of respect for your boundaries. This insight had profound implications for all my relationships. I began evaluating my friendships, work relationships, and even casual interactions through this new lens of mutual respect and reciprocity. Some connections naturally fell away, while others deepened as I became more authentic and discerning. Diane remained my steadfast supporter throughout this process. "You're not just stronger now," she observed over dinner, celebrating the one-year anniversary of my financial independence plan. "You're more you." My professional life had flourished as I redirected the energy once consumed by family drama. 6 months after the confrontation, I was promoted to technical director with a substantial salary increase and team leadership responsibilities. The promotion might have happened anyway, but I believe my newfound confidence and boundary-setting skills had played a significant role. Inspired by my experience, I developed and launched a financial literacy program for young professionals at my company. The monthly workshops covered topics ranging from basic budgeting to recognizing financial manipulation in relationships. The response had been overwhelmingly positive, with many participants sharing their own stories of financial entanglements with family and friends. Perhaps the most unexpected development had been meeting Jackson, a cybersecurity consultant who worked with our company on a major project. Our professional relationship had gradually evolved into friendship and then cautiously into something more. Unlike previous relationships where I had rushed to demonstrate my value through generosity, I allowed this connection to develop slowly, paying careful attention to the balance of giving and receiving. "I've never met someone so thoughtful about relationship dynamics," Jackson told me after I shared an abbreviated version of my family history. "Most people just fall into patterns without questioning them." Last month, I had taken perhaps the biggest step in my recovery journey, hosting a small Thanksgiving dinner at my home. Jordan and his children attended, along with Diane and her partner and Jackson. My parents and Amanda had been invited with clear expectations about behavior, but all three declined with various excuses. The gathering was modest compared to previous family holidays, but it felt more genuine than any celebration I could remember. Jordan's children filled the house with laughter. Diane brought her famous apple pie, and Jackson charmed everyone with stories from his international consulting adventures. There was no undercurrent of financial tension, no subtle digs or manipulative comments, just good food and authentic connection. After everyone left, I sat in my quiet living room, reflecting on how far I had come. The pain of betrayal hadn't completely disappeared. Perhaps it never would. But it no longer defined me or my choices. I had learned that forgiveness wasn't about pretending the hurt never happened or allowing harmful patterns to continue. True forgiveness meant releasing the anger while maintaining the wisdom gained from the experience. I had also discovered that family could be chosen as well as born. The people who truly cared about my well-being had revealed themselves through their actions during this difficult year. Some shared my blood, others didn't, but all had demonstrated respect for my boundaries and genuine interest in my happiness. The financial aspect of my family saga continued to unfold with repayments, steadily reducing the outstanding debt. But the real wealth I had gained was in self-knowledge and emotional freedom. I no longer measured my worth by what I could provide to others, or sacrificed my financial security for temporary approval. My spreadsheet tracking family loans still existed, but alongside it was a new document, my personal boundaries and values statement. This living document guided my decisions about relationships, helping me build connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation or fear. The journey from being a pathetic piggy bank to a woman with strong boundaries and authentic relationships had been painful, but necessary. I wouldn't wish the betrayal I experienced on anyone, but I couldn't regret the growth it had forced. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come wrapped in the most painful packages. As I looked toward the future, I felt a sense of peace I had never known before. My relationships might be fewer, but they were deeper and healthier. My financial security was protected by clear boundaries and legal agreements. And most importantly, I had learned that standing up for myself wasn't selfish. It was essential for building a life of genuine connection and respect. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with people you love? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember that protecting your own well-being isn't selfish. It's necessary for building authentic relationships. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Thank you for listening, and remember, true generosity comes from love, not from fear of rejection or abandonment.